Hi, and welcome to Punished for Protecting. I am your host, Francesca Amato Banfield. Tonight, I have a very special guest, Evelyn Gross Whitebay. Evelyn is an educator, and her expertise is in dyslexia and learning difficulties. I'd like to welcome Evelyn Gross Whitebay. Evelyn, welcome to the show tonight.
Thank you, Fran. I'm really glad to be here, and thank you for giving us the opportunity, and me the opportunity, to talk about dyslexia.
It's an honor to have you here tonight, Evelyn.
Thanks so much. And first of all, I would like people to know that I'm an educator, and also I've been working in the field of dyslexia for some time, and I have a program, and I've had the privilege of serving these children, and it's been highly successful, and I hope that other educators will be able to, and parents and the general public will be able to benefit from the types of things that we've been learning and that I've been learning as well. Maybe we need to talk about dyslexia a little bit so that people understand what it is. It's a neurologically based learning difference. And it's actually observed through fMRIs. We can see that there are different structures in the brain. And dyslexics tend to have their reading center over here. That's 1 in 5 people, 1 in 5 children also. And that's 20% of the population approximately. The Dyslexia Caucus in Washington, D.C. Under Lamar Smith and also Senator Cassidy and government statistics use 17.5%. So that's a vetted statistic from the United States government. So 80%, to go on here, 80% of the population have rapid word reading and reading fluency over here. So there is a proper intervention for dyslexics and students that have learning disabilities, or an alternative, learning style that is appropriate and proper for this type of difficulty. And if we don't provide that kind of an approach, in my opinion, we're almost creating a disability, or we're dismissing an ability that could be developed into something really wonderful, because dyslexics have a lot of assets. And we really do need to address their learning style so they can be achievers just like other people in the population of school and other students. So again, they have a lot of assets, and also they can and should be taught according to the approach that's appropriate for their learning style. At Yale University, under Dr. Shaywitz, there's been a lot of research, and they are actually able to observe the reading brain. And I understand that there are 37 other studies in the United States that are replicating their work, perhaps at universities and other places. So we can now observe the reading brain, and it's extraordinary. When you see those structures there, and then you see the reading behaviors before the proper intervention, and then when you see the structures that are there after the intervention. And of course, this intervention is dynamic as each year, as the curriculum and demands for more complex reading occurs, writing and spelling as well. And it also applies to other language, like math. Math is also a language. And writing and the alphabet is also another system. So, and writing the alphabet also, which would be dysgraphia if you're not, able to do that well. So there are interventions for all of these types of things, and apparently we're finding that there are several different types of dyslexia as well. So the research is very, very important. Just to move forward here, we can see to recap, we can actually see the reading structures develop. And the goal really is to create a sustainable reading neural network in the brain that will carry the child from grade level to grade level with increasing complexity, and then also all the way through until they achieve a level of automaticity. So, that's basically, in a nutshell, what we know right now. What we also know, according to national studies, is that 2/3 of children that don't read proficiently by the end of 4th grade end up in jail or on welfare. We also know that the literacy levels in the jails are very, very high, and I suspect that there is a significant amount of dyslexia there. And now, this also affects family dynamics, and it also affects how people interact with one another, and I kind of wanted to focus on a special area, which is the area of distress in families and extreme distress. When we identify and address dyslexia in the schools, which we need to do increasingly, we're going to see a decrease in the stress in children, school anxiety, ADHD, and ADD. But in the extreme situations, people are asking me whether extreme stress, say in an abusive situation, family situation, actually creates dyslexia. I can find out whether there's research about that, and I would love to come back and share that. I have seen a couple articles here and there, but I would like to do more research on that. Certainly, I do know that Emerson Dickman, who is a JD and has written about stress, and also, I just want to get the right terminology here, the cycle of causation that feeds upon itself. I think it's applicable to perhaps to the situation of extreme stress where there's abusive situations in families. Certainly, stress will cause a change in the cortisol levels. And when that happens, it's very difficult, research shows, for children to retrieve information from their brain, and also it can cause interference with learning. So this is really an important area, I think, that needs to be researched. And also, I think there needs to be awareness about this, too, in the judicial system, and also that judges also be aware that people that come before the court that, have been abusing children, or whether a totally different situation where they're incarcerated, they need to also, the judges need to be aware that possibly there could be a literacy problem too. Basically, in one of these cycles, after a child early on starts experiencing school failure, there may be acting out behaviors, and I know of one case, Amir Baraka, and this is public information, and he has written a book about it. He was beaten as a child, and because he couldn't read, although his siblings were perfectly proficient at reading, and he basically turned to the streets, where sometimes our children do get a lot of support, and then he ended up being incarcerated for some really bad things that happened that he did, and drug dealing and things like that. So he basically learned how to read when he was in jail, and then he has dedicated a good portion of his extra time to helping the dyslexia movement and people understand. He's also testified in Washington, D.C. So did you have any other questions or anything like that regarding this?
I wanted to talk to you more about some of the myths associated with dyslexia. I know sometimes people don't understand really, you've just explained it, but a lot of times families may not understand that their child has dyslexia, so they think it's a behavioral issue and it's dyslexia. Also, I did hear that another type of a myth would be that a child or that a person with dyslexia may not be intelligent, and it turns out that they're some of the most highly intelligent people. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. That is absolutely correct. As I said before, dyslexics have a lot of assets, and it can be in the area of engineering, it can be in the creative arts, it can be in problem solving, it can be in dance, it can be in athletics. I mean, a lot of the Olympiads are also dyslexic. But also, what about Joe Average? You know, those of us who are not in the limelight of Hollywood or on TV. Jennifer Aniston is dyslexic. Albert Einstein.
Right.
Well, those are big names. But those of us who have an average life and are dyslexic also need to have an opportunity to learn and to be able to perform as well as our peers. And it's really, really very important. And also it's important for dyslexics and parents of dyslexics to help their child discover what their assets are, what their giftings are, and to really capitalize on that and what their love of learning can be. Also, teachers need to be aware of this also, and administrators. I would say everyone in our society also needs to be aware of this, because our dyslexic children have been really sometimes treated very badly because of misinformation and also, quite frankly, ignorance about it. And we really need to promote awareness about it.
That was going to be one of my next questions. As an educator, have you witnessed that the school systems may not be as on the target regarding dyslexia or recognizing that a child has dyslexia? Has that been something that you've run into in your time of teaching and so on?
Well, thank you for asking that question, because it's really important.
Yeah.
So, do we as teachers see this? Yeah, we see it every day. And we work very, very hard at trying different things. And there are many school districts throughout the United States and also in New York State, which unfortunately happens to be one of the last 11 as of 2017 states, that does not have dyslexia laws for our children. But that being said, we need to, get those pieces in place, and then we also need to look at what we can do as parents. And that question you asked, what is the most important piece of that question for you?
You're trained to see it and to catch it, whereby all the teachers in the schools trained to do that? Are they catching it, or are they just thinking possibly it's not dyslexia, they're not catching it, so it's leaving a child kind of like...
So basically you're wondering whether teachers are seeing this and whether they're catching it, which means, are they identifying it, and are we as educators and school districts identifying it, screening for it, or even aware that it exists? We see it every day. And we try all these different kinds of interventions to help. But unfortunately, we need to have more training. A lot of our policies and a lot of our training is 10, 20, 30, 40 years old, and we really need updates, especially since 2009. And all of this research is coming out that A, dyslexia exists, B, we know the proper intervention, and C, we need to get this information out to the general public and to school districts. And many states are starting to rally. There are parents, like through organizations like Decoding Dyslexia, which is in every state in the United States and other countries now, because it doesn't matter what country you're from. You can have dyslexics in any country.
Right.
So, do we need to do differently? Yes. Do we need more training and awareness? Yes. Do we need to develop specialists in this area? Yes. And based on my research on the numbers of students we have in New York State, we need about, if I have this correct, about 160 to 164,000 teachers that are specialists in New York State, that have a caseload of about 20 children. And that's doable. We can do it through in-service, we can do it through teacher training in colleges, and also with the methods that are being employed in the schools, we need to be able to work with both methodologies. And certainly the approach that's used for dyslexics is extremely beneficial to all learners. So it's really, really important. And I can also say that, you know, sometimes the ravages on the brain from Lyme's disease also affects the neurology, and can also, in my experience, it can be helped by the structured literacy approach that's intensive. So to rebuild those neurological connections and to create that reading highway, and also language, because this is a language-based learning disability, we call it. It's a difficulty, and a lot of parents would prefer that it's called a learning difference instead of a disability. Historically, we've called it a disability because back in the 70s we wanted to help children. So if that's what we needed to do, is call it a disability to start the ball rolling and get help for our children, yes. Along the way, we also need to continue to update. We need to update our information and our approaches, and get these approaches into the public school system as well.
So basically,
and private schools.
Sorry, basically, so students that are left undiagnosed are really in a critical point, because they can end up, like you said, in jail or just in really bad behavioral issues and things throughout life. So with the proper assessment of this.
And also on welfare.
And also on welfare.
So there's a huge cost to this, to our society, by neglecting this issue. And we really need to address it after we identify it. And certainly it's going to, in my experience, make the whole learning process in our education system much better for everyone.
Absolutely.
And, you know, teachers, you know, are also under distress. You know, you have a lot of new Common Core types of things. And it's interesting because part of the language sequence is very similar to the structured literacy approach in Orton-Gillingham sequences.
Wow.
So in terms of that, so what's critical is how children are taught. Okay, and that we also
absolutely right.
We also need to develop understanding that, you know, that there's a positive intention to what is happening educationally in this country, and also we want to develop a positive response to identifying dyslexia and then also addressing it effectively, so that we can improve our educational system overall.
Could you tell the viewing audience a little bit about diagnoses many times that are ADD and ADHD, which actually could very well be dyslexia. Is that correct?
Well, it's interesting because it seems that ADD, ADHD, and also anxiety are really bubbling up and emerging as symptoms. And it's really important to get to the whys. And this is another thing that Emerson Dickman, J.D., has also used the Toyota question model. And, you know, why is the child acting out? Why is there anxiety in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade? What is causing that anxiety? What is causing that inattentiveness? My experience is that it's a lack of strategies. and also when confronted with the printed word and the phenomenon that children report sometimes that are dyslexic, it's extraordinary. I've had students say that they see the words floating through the page. There's interviews on identifying.org and identifying dyslexia that another girl was saying that she just saw the letters all over the place. Now, these children are also very visually, spatially oriented, and that's not the only type of strength that they have. There can be other strengths, and certainly when you get into the psychoeducational evaluation, you can get a whole lot more information about that. But our children who are dyslexic report these different types of phenomenon, and it creates anxiety because they're confused.
Right, they're not.
And they also see their peers, because they're very smart kids, average to above average intelligence, and they see that they are not keeping pace. I've heard reports recently where children are saying in kindergarten, "Mommy, I'm not getting this," like everybody else, and they know. And that does cause anxiety. But also there is an emerging body of evidence that certainly some, if not a significant portion of ADHD and ADD is unidentified and unaddressed dyslexia.
Well, I want to thank you, Evelyn. It's been a pleasure having you to speak to our viewing audience today, and I really appreciate having you and hope that we can get you back on here again to give us some more information. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fran.
And we're going to just hold this up.
I'll be delighted.
For more information on our awareness and action projects, go to Dyslexia Days on Facebook and identifying.org. Identifying dyslexia, hashtag identifying, hashtag Dyslexia Days.
That's really hashtag dyslexic days.
Oh, excuse us. Hashtag Dyslexic Days.
I'd also like to just mention, too, that we have Decoding Dyslexia in New York as well. Thank you so much for listening, and I'd be delighted to share more.
Okay, thank you. And I want to thank the viewing audience today, and if you'd like to be on our show, Punished for Protecting, please reach out to us on our website, punished, the number 4, beingaparent.com. Thank you.